the Comedy Historian podcast, created by Robert and Gemma Ross. Welcome to the latest episode of Quip Wrecked, the podcast which discusses which comedy actor and actress you would choose to be on a desert island with, along with your choice of comedy creative, be it a director, writer or producer, and your favourite TV sitcom, along with favourite comedy film. In today's episode, Robert is joined by director, producer and writer Roy Gould. Roy is best known for being David Croft's right-hand man and directed You Rang My Lord. Roy also directed The Bruise Cruise and was often spotted around the BBC. More recently, Roy has turned his hand to writing with his latest book, Theatre of War. Roy is currently one of the producers, writers and directors of James and Ivy, the spin-off audio comedy drama to You Rang My Lord. So, are you ready to be Quip Wrecked with Roy Gould?
Right, so hello and welcome to another edition of Quip Wrecked, the podcast where me, Robert Ross, comedy historian extraordinaire, talks to one of my favourite people about their favourite funny people and things. And today we are delighted to have a man of the theatre, a man of letters, novelist extraordinaire, and director of some of the nation's favourite sitcoms, Mr. Roy Gould.
Hello, Mr. Ross. I hope the letters are G, S, and B.
Good, thank you. That's good. So thank you, Roy, for doing this. I know you've had a long and prolific career in show business, and your taste in comedy is excellent. So I thought we might start, as we always try to on these shows, that when did we actually first get in touch and first meet? Do you remember?
I do. Actually, I first heard you on a broadcast that our mutual friend Luke Deal did on Radio Suffolk after Barry Cryer died.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we did.
And he interviewed you down the lane,
Yeah.
and immediately afterwards he interviewed me down the lane. And I thought, who is this Robert Ross bloke? So I got in touch with you. I think I sent you an email or Facebook.
You did. And I, of course, knew who you were, but hadn't met you or heard from you. That's right. I remember it was old Baz, wasn't it? Bless his heart. So that would have been not that long ago, 2022, when Baz departed for pastures greener. That's right. Yes, I was very impressed by your contribution because you want to talk a bit about Barry Cryer. So how did you know Barry then?
I first worked with Barry on a memorial show for the actor Mike Pratt.
Yes.
Because I was asked to stage manage it by a friend of mine because it was at the Aldwych Theatre where the RSC was. One Sunday evening, and actually a friend of mine who was a DSM at deputy stage manager at the RSC said, "Do you fancy doing it?" And it was an absolute chaotic shindig because there was nobody rehearsing when we sort of did this thing, and nobody knew what was going on. And Baz Cryer and John Junkin were hosting it. Now, two different
what
people.
Could possibly go wrong there?
What could possibly go wrong? Two different people. Because it was in the glory days of Hello Cheeky at this time. So, now I don't know if your listeners will know is that Baz is he just will roll with anything. Johnny Junkin was the complete opposite. He was a complete nervous wreck who wanted everything, every I dotted and every T crossed. And of course, I didn't know what was happening. I was looking on the stage to see who was standing behind the curtains, and that's coming on. I didn't know what side they were coming on from. I didn't know who it was. It could be Cleo Lane. It could be anybody. And so I was making it up. And so that they would turn and say Cleo Lane, and somebody else would cork on the other side. And Johnny Junkin came storming around to the prompt corner and said, "You're making us look a fool. We know you're making us look a fool." And Barry said, "He doesn't need anybody to help us make him look like a fool." So Baz had to calm him down. That's when I first met. That's a long story.
I should say, I'm assuming most people will know as well, but Mike Pratt, obviously best known for Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, and also a fine songwriter. With Lionel Bart. But I've also just finished that story because we're not even started properly yet. But both Baz and Johnny, it's fair to say, liked to drink, didn't they?
Well, I think that's a disgraceful thing to say. And on their behalf, yes. And I have to say that I did fall out of a lot of pubs with Mr. Cryer. Didn't fall out of a pub with John, but lots of times with Baz.
You
Yes,
fell in a few with no, but anyway.
yes.
No, but it's true. Good, good. Well, and indeed, and that's how our first, and then we met in the lovely flesh. I seem to remember a Pizza
How dare
Express for
you?
some reason, didn't we?
We did. We did. Actually, it was at the Pizza Express
Yes.
in London, Holborn, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for our good mate, Jeffrey Holland, who you were interviewing in one of your comedy friends and thingies and doobry, whatever you call
Indeed,
it.
just that's what we called it, comedy friends and doobies. That's why it did
Yeah,
so well. Yeah.
yes, yes. And so that's when I first met you face to face. I mean,
Yes.
and it was a reckoning because we had Pollard there and we had Vicky
It,
Michelle
it
there
did. Yes.
and
Yes.
Jeff there and became one of those evenings, didn't it? Really, Robert?
It did. It did. I'm still recovering. But it was 3 years ago. Anyway, no, but no, I mean you're right because we had a lot of the rep company that you've worked with. I'm sure we'll come to those a bit later on down the line, but we're going to start the proper show now. After
Oh, have
that,
we started yet?
no, after that wander down memory lane.
I've used all my best material,
Oh, there
love.
you go. Bit like Johnny Junkin. Anyway,
Yes.
right. So, the nature of this podcast, as you know, because Gemma has sent you the requirements for this. So we're gonna rattle through. Let's start off with your favorite funny man. Who's your favorite funny man, Roy?
Favorite funny man. So difficult. It's so difficult, all this, because there are lots of them. So I sort of okay. I gave myself a narrow view. So otherwise, I'd be going mad. I'd have been on a sleepless night last night if I'd have tried to actually work it all out.
I'm
And
sorry
I
I put you
came.
through so much pain here. It's supposed to be fun.
No, no. See, I take comedy very seriously,
Well,
Rob.
as do I, as you know. But yeah, go on.
And the person I came up with, Kenny Connor.
Ah, brilliant. Yes.
Kenny Connor. I know you're a great Carry On fan, and written books
Fan, do you
about.
mind? I'm the official Carry On historian, I'll have you know.
How
Anyway,
dare you? How
but
very dare you?
but no,
Yes,
but absolutely. But obviously, I know Kenny Connor's work from way beyond the Carry Ons, as do you, of course.
yes, and I went to see the Carry On films as a kid because I wanted to see Kenny Connor. I wasn't of course I was a fan of Sid James and Barbara and the others, but the one I really wanted to see, and I was very disappointed if he wasn't in one, was Kenny Connor. Kenny always just made me laugh. He just had to come on the screen, and I, as a kid, I would laugh. And I've got to say, when David Croft said that he was going to bring Kenny in to play Uncle Sammy in Heidi High, I was a bit nervous because Kenny was a hero of mine. I'd never met him. He was a total hero of mine. And I thought, oh, I hope he's nice. I hope he's nice. I hope he's nice. Well, I had no worries at all because he was the nicest, the funniest gentleman I've ever met. And we became great, great, great mates. And he would always goose my backside every time he passed me, go, "Bark!" And he probably wouldn't be allowed to do that. He'd probably be arrested. Um,
No, not on
but,
this show, he wouldn't be.
but
But
Kenny was lovely and he was just the loveliest. And he was just a funny man.
everybody I've spoken to about Kenny Connor says the same thing. That yes, he liked a practical joke, but he was so professional. When it was time to turn over on the camera, he was there. He knew his lines. Yep.
Absolutely. I tried to corpse him once on Hello Hello when he was playing Monsieur Alphonse. There was a scene with a pepper mill. He was doing, it was something, I can't remember exactly what it was. I think he was whining and dining Madame Edith. And he wanted this large pepper mill. And he kept saying, make sure it's large, like, make sure it's large. So on the dress rehearsal, I'd got the props department to find the largest. Now, no people at home won't be able to see. It was about 3 foot long. And I put it on the back of the set. And of course, he came in to do the scene and he turned around and bless him, he didn't pause. He picked up this damn great thing. I mean, it was hysterically funny. I was rolling in the fire lane in the studio. And he just played the whole scene, and Carmen was on the floor. I mean, she didn't know what to do, but he just kept going, kept going, going. This thing was enormous. And then he put it down, and I said, because I was floor managing it, I said, "Right, thank you very much." And he chased me around the studio. He absolutely chased me. And he loved it. He said, "Love it." He said, "Can we have that tonight?" And David said, "No, you can't." Loved him to bits.
What was it? Well, you mentioned you were a fan as a kid, and obviously, Kenneth Connor's career was extremely long and prolific from, pre-war when he was in British films, and then obviously after he did his service for King and Country. But what was it about Kenneth Connor's performances that really tickled you as a kid?
I don't know. It's very difficult to say. He just made me laugh. I wanted to watch him, and he made me laugh. And he was one of those. I mean, I didn't know it at the time. I hadn't analysed it at the time as a kid, but I couldn't take my eyes off him. It didn't matter who else was on the screen. I mean, Babs could be on the screen with beautiful Babs, as Ronnie Barker said. Um, but I was looking at Kenny. I must have been very strange. Anyway, no, I just couldn't take my eyes off him. He was funny. He just had funny bones,
He had
and
that face as well, that very expressionful face, didn't he? That
yes,
yeah.
yes, absolutely,
a,
absolutely.
a gift to any director. And of course, were you a radio kid? Were you a radio nerd? 'Cause he worked with Ted Ray and he guested on the
He
Goon Show and
did,
all sorts of things,
he
didn't
did,
he?
he did, he did. And I mean, and when I get to my last bit in your lovely list, of
Hmm.
course, he will feature again.
Oh yes. Okay. Anyway, that's
Yes,
a little hint to stop
little
people turning
teaser,
off at this
little
point.
teaser.
Little teaser. So I mean, I want to wrap up on Kenny Connor because we could talk about we've actually talked about
Oh,
Kenny
for
Connor on
days, for
stage,
days.
but days and days exactly. But you also did direct in one of his last appearances in an episode of You Rang My Lord, of course, didn't you? And
Did I did.
was he still even in his last sort of twilight years? He came across as still sort of impish and energetic,
Never changed.
didn't he?
Never changed, Kenny. Um, he just he was like a 12-year-old. I mean, all the time, and you didn't have to worry about him. He didn't play the "oh, I'm an old man" card. Far from it. The absolute opposite. He just wanted to do things. He loved being not only in front of the camera, but he loved being with the crew. He
Mm.
loved the whole thing about filmmaking, and so he wasn't standoffish. He would muck about with the crew and make up girls and costume and cameras and sound. He just absolutely loved being there.
Yeah, a proper team player, which is a
Oh,
gift to
absolutely,
a director like
absolutely,
you. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I remember he told me a story about when there was a very good article about the carry-ons, and they were filming one of the carry-ons. I can't remember which one it was. And there was this article, I think, in the Times or something, absolutely saying how what a marvelous institution the Carry On films are, and it was a real blow up piece. And the next day, Peter Rogers came in and said, "I think you would all have seen the interview, that thing in the newspaper." He said, "Don't let it go to your head. You're still not going to be paid any more money."
Well, there hangs a tale about that, doesn't it?
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
but it certainly gave Kenneth Connor, even when they were putting together those compilations, which is the seed of all the angst about the money.
Mm,
It sort of brought him back into the public consciousness again, and then he got all the David Croft, and he guest starred in Blackadder the Third and all that sort of thing. He was suddenly
yeah,
this sort of
yeah,
comedy legend again, wasn't he? Off the back of those repeats, in a way.
absolutely,
Mm,
absolutely. And I think lots of people discovered him for the first time. Um, and the kids loved him,
mm,
absolutely loved him. I mean, he was a child,
mm.
and I think that's what they loved.
I think
Yeah,
that's the secret to stay happy and to keep that childlikeness inside you, which we all try
yeah.
and do in this game. But anyway, all right. Well, look, that's but that as I say, we could talk about Kenny Conniff until the cows come home, and they're on their way now. But let's jump then a side step on this dance floor of comedy to your
Oh,
favourite.
you
Thank you.
rich with words you are.
To your I've rehearsed this to your can you tell to your favorite funny female then, because you've worked with
Ah,
a lot of funny females in your time, but
there's so many, so many, so many, and it's almost impossible to say, really.
mm,
And I was going through, and I was thinking of Victoria Wood, lovely Vic, who I was very, very fortunate of being the production manager on the second series of As Seen on TV,
mm,
and working with her very closely, and she was an absolute diamond. Um, a funny lady and lovely. But I'm going to drop down on somebody who again, like Kenny, I always admired, and that's June Whitfield.
Ah, well, there you go. The Queen Mother of British comedy,
Yes,
really.
the
Yeah.
Queen Mother. And I've got to say, I mean, I did a day's filming on Terry and June once. I was asked to go in, and we were filming, but at their house, outside the house in the garden and on the street. I can't remember exactly where it was. Um, and we didn't take a full crew. We didn't take catering trucks or whatever with us, and none of that. And so one of the team was sent off to the local cafe to get the bacon butties. And unfortunately, it was taking a long time. And Terry Scott came over to me and said, "Where's my bacon butty? I need my bacon. It's disgraceful we haven't got a catering truck." And he had a right old go at me, did Terry. And Junie just came up, tapped him on the shoulder, and said, "Terry, leave the boy alone. He's doing his best. Leave him alone." Oh, Terry got very grumpy, but Junie was just
Yeah.
divine.
Well, there's lots of stories about Terry Scott, and we can do him again at another point. But certainly, I remember asking June Whitfield. I was doing a signing convention, and one of my people I had with me was June, and Colin Baker was there as well, signing his Doctor Who stuff.
Mhm.
And he'd done a run of Run for Your Wife in the West End with Terry Scott, and he asked June the question, basically, how did you possibly stick working with Terry Scott for all those 20 odd years they worked together? And June said, "Patience, dear, patience."
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And she had that with all the greats that she worked with, Frankie Howard and Arthur Askey and Jimmy Edwards and all these people she worked with, didn't
And
she?
Tony, of
Yeah.
course, with Tony. Yeah.
Hancock, of course, yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean, I went for June because she was a chameleon. I mean, she could do everything. I mean, I never saw her do straight stuff, but I'm sure could have done it. She
mm,
was a wonderful actress.
mm.
Wonderful actress.
You've got to be a good actress or to be able to do the comedy with such ease, haven't you? Really, you've got to become those characters, you know.
So her timing was exquisite.
Mm,
Her timing of a line. I mean, every time it never failed. She just knew how to time a line, and that's
yeah,
just great. And the look. She would give a withering look to Terry or whomever.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and just she was just a wonderful, wonderful performer.
And I mean, she would have been 100 this year, bless her. She made it to 93, but she would have been 100
Yeah,
this year. And as I say, her career was again so long, so prolific, and she worked with everybody pretty much. Do you think there's a danger that she was so good at supporting the star male comic that her contribution has been underestimated a little bit?
I think there's no doubt about it, to be honest with you. Also, I mean, and it's always been the case up until very recently, is that there weren't women stars, and or there were, but they didn't get the attention of Tony and all the others did.
Mm.
No, I think absolutely. June, I mean, she was there. She was solid. She was rock solid. And I think she made them look better, to
Mm.
be honest with you. And I think they would have been not as good if they hadn't had her as a feed or somebody to bounce off of.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Tony Hancock, and we're recording this on the anniversary of Tony's death, sadly.
Are we
Um,
really?
1968. So what are we? We're oh gosh, 50. What is it?
Years ago.
57 years ago. But yes, I mean, I mean, they worked together a lot. But the
Mm.
classic 25-minute Hancock, the blood donor.
Oh,
You're right. She matches him pitch for pitch, doesn't she, in that scene when they're
absolutely.
as the nurse
Absolutely.
there? Yeah.
Absolutely. Drink a pint of milk a day. Drink a pint of
Coughs and sneezes, prednising.
milk.
Yes.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
yes.
love it.
Oh
I love
well.
it.
No, no. You say you worked with her just briefly on an episode of Terry.
Literally a day,
Yeah.
literally a day. But I met her again at a BBC Light Entertainment Christmas party with her lovely husband Tim,
Mm.
and because with David Croft, and we just had a nice chat for 20 minutes amongst the din of everybody else getting very, very drunk. And just Junie was lovely, lovely
Mm.
lady.
As you say, just dependable, and this is why
Yeah.
even in the twilight of her years, she was always working. I remember phoning her once, one of the many rumors of doing another Carry On film, and this was the last sort of 6 months of her life,
Mhm.
and she was up to do it. She said, "But dear, I only do sitting down parts these days." but she was still working. So
Yeah.
no, brilliant. I was funny going through the list now. I'm going to jump to your creative now. And I know we're both mad obsessive of the work of Plum, P.G. Wodehouse, and you
Certainly,
could
yeah.
have had a novelist. But who's your choice of comedy creative?
Again, very, very difficult. I mean, you mentioned Plum. Another person that and he's overlooked is Hugh Hector Monroe, Saki.
Hmm.
And you'll find out later. I love black humor. I love dark humor. So absolutely. But I'm going to plump for the man that I had the pleasure of knowing and working with for 30 years, and that's David Croft. It
Yeah.
has to be David. I mean, he was such a clever man, such a wonderful comedy writer, wonderful producer, wonderful comedy director, and also somebody who brought people through. Not only myself, but so many people um, who he gave the opportunity of going out there. I mean, and so it has to be David.
As you say, your boss for so many years, and
Yeah,
was I mean, you get this impression because he was a military man, and because, as you say, he worked on so many hugely successful shows, almost exclusively for BBC, from Hugh and I with Hugh Lloyd and Terry Scott, all the way through to the shows that you worked with him. What was it? Was he quite a hard taskmaster, or was he a jolly sort of cove to work for?
David. He was a hard taskmaster, but not in a horrible way. He
Mm,
knew exactly what he wanted. He never raised his voice. He never got angry. Well, and that's partly because he was on beta blockers because he had a heart problem,
mm.
and so he had to keep his blood pressure down. Look, he never. You always knew when David got cross because his gullet would go up and down very fast. His Adam's apple, and I'd always warn people that when first started work. I said, you will never know when David's cross. If you think you might, look at his Adam's apple. If it's going up and down like a rate of knots, he's cross. No, but David, he just knew what he wanted. He would listen to other people. One of the big things you always say in the office when I first met him and worked for him, he said, "Listen, I will take ideas from other people, but when I say stop, I mean stop. You know, in other words, don't keep going on about it. If I've said, okay, fine, I've made my decision. I've
Mm,
made my decision.
mm,
Full
mm.
stop." And he did that with the actors too. I mean, there was always the thing when poor Shane or Jeff, or not so much Sue, because she wouldn't do it. I'd say, "Oh, David, why can I say this line like this?" Or, can I change the if to but? And David would look at him and say, try it, love. And then shake his head and go, no, no, and move on. And sometimes he said, it's different, it's not better. But he
Excuse
was
me.
no, he was a hard taskmaster, but
Mm,
not in a horrible way. And what was great, and for someone like myself, is you knew exactly where you were with him. You knew what he wanted,
mm.
so therefore you could get the props, what he wanted, the lists and whatever. And then you could, if you couldn't quite get what you saw that was in his head, he was totally approachable to say, David, you've said this, that, and the other. Can't find that exactly, but found this. Is this any good? And he wouldn't waffle and whiffle about it. He'd either go, yes, love, that's fine, or no, keep looking, will you?
Mm,
Which,
mm.
but that's all you need, and that's what you wanted.
Well, I suppose because he was the writer or co-writer and also the producer, he knew the limitations of the production, didn't he? So he wouldn't have written something too outrageous to find, I'm guessing.
No, I mean, and you see, because he was the director as well as a writer, is that he could envision exactly as he was writing. I don't know if it was Jimmy's the same, but certainly David was. Is that so? When he's writing, he's directing in his head. He's directing it as he's writing it.
Mm,
Which is fun enough. It's the thing that I do when I'm writing. I shoot the scenes in my head as I'm writing, and
mm,
I think that really helps. So because you're working it out what can work and what doesn't work. I mean, there are some writers who absolutely have no idea how something is filmed, and you go, how do you envisage this? I don't know. Yeah, but you've written it. You must have some sort of vision for it. No, no, which I never understand. I find that
mm.
very odd. I couldn't do it. But David directed it in his head, so he knew exactly. there was no faffing about and saying where should we stand and what should we do. It's cameras there, love. You enter there, you go over there, you stand there, you say that line, you do that, and it's may sound very prescriptive, but when you haven't got a lot of time, and you're trying to churn out. We were churning out 90 to 100 minutes of film when we were away filming.
Mm.
And that's a heck of a lot of shooting. I mean, that's a movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're shooting that in 3 or 4 weeks, and then coming back and doing the studio bits. So you couldn't. There was no time for motivation and art, love.
Well, no, quite no. But also in terms of comedy, because you want to attain that spontaneity, don't you? You don't want the actors to get too stale with the lines. You want a little spark of they're making this up as they go along, inverted commas, don't you? Really?
That's right. And he hated retakes. David hated retakes. And the only time that we had a slight falling out was when I was directing You Ramblelord, and I wanted to do another retake in the studio, and he leant over to me in the gallery and said, "Why are you going again, love?" And I said, "Well, I've got a booming shot, David. There was a bloody great microphone." He said, "They'll never see it. I'd move on if I were you." And I actually sat around and say, "No, David, I'm going again." And he looked at me. He said, "All right, all right, all right. I bet you'd use take one and paint it out." And I said, "You're probably right, David, but I'm putting my little foot down." He hated retakes. He loathed retakes because also with the audience, I mean, television centers seating wasn't the most comfortable in the world.
Mm.
And he said after 45 minutes they get fidgety. And if they get fidgety, they stop laughing.
Yeah.
So he would always, if he could, actually, if you go back to the old Dad's Armies, I mean, I know that dear Charles Garland has painted most of them out. The amount of camera wobble and zoom and booms in shot, if you go back to the original tapes, are quite amazing. And
Yeah.
David didn't care,
Yeah.
and he just said they'll never notice. And quite frankly, general public don't.
They don't. And all to be fair, I mean, someone like myself, comedy historian, who's watched these things probably too many times to retain sanity. If when you do spot a little thing like that, it adds to the charm of it for me. You're suddenly in BBC TV Centre in 1970, and the Dad's Army guys are there, and it's you suddenly get a little glimpse of behind the scenes, which I love.
Yeah, it drives my missus crazy because when I'm watching television shows, I go, "Oh, boom, boom," or camera wobble. "Oh, that shot's soft. Shut up!" Shut up. Because I can't not because I'm instinctively looking for all those
Yeah.
things.
Busman's
As
holiday.
just enjoying it.
Yeah. Remind me never to watch a TV show with you. Anyway, but no, I want just to wrap up on David Croft, because again we can talk about these people for so many hours and days. But what do you think it was? Now I'm asking you to be a bit unmodest about yourself. Now, what was the quality that David Croft spotted in you that allowed him to trust you to take over from directing shows that he directed prior?
To be honest, it's a very difficult question to answer, but I think he realized that, and goodness knows where it came from, because I certainly don't. I instinctively understood his language, his comedy language.
Mm.
And there was some, no names made factual, but there was one of the directors he had through who wanted to have tracking shots and moving, sent Jimmy Perry absolutely bonkers when David was in hospital and he took over directing, and he was moving that camera and gone cranes or whatever. Jimmy was tearing his hair out and slapping his hat onto the floor, going, "What's he doing? What's he doing?" Um, and I realised that, of course, and going back to the Ealing comedies and going back is that the camera is there to record the action. It isn't a character. And unfortunately, there are lots of directors who make the camera a character. And if there's no point in the shot moving, don't move the damn thing. I mean, it is as simple as wide shot, two shot, single, single, wide shot, two shot, single, single. And then it sounds very boring, and lots of people say, "Oh, but that's not creative." I'm not there to be creative. It was there to record the comedy.
Yeah.
And
It doesn't make the line any funnier if it's a clever keyhole shot, does it?
no, absolutely right. And actually, it makes it less funnier because what the audience, because there was that moment when they're going, "Why is that happening?" They don't know that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. And David always said, keep it clean. And the other big thing he taught me, and which I carry through, is of course you never went into close up for the comedy line. You only went into the close up for the reaction to the comedy line. And it was one of the big things he said. Look, big mistake. Lots of comedy directors is that they bang in for the comedy line and they've got nowhere to go for the reaction. That you don't.
Having said all that, when you took over as director on your Wrangler Lord, and we just Gemma and myself had just had another delicious rewatch for the umpteenth time, and it just gets better and better, that show somehow. But when you and I'm right in saying your first directing was the park scene, the clandestine park scene, which is a lot going on and
Oh, the picnic, the picnic.
picnic.
That,
Oh,
yeah,
picnic. There was a picnic, was it? Yes, yes.
the picnic.
Yeah.
Yes, because that was at the beginning of series 3. I mean, I don't. A boy with a story is that I was the production manager on the first 2 series and was setting up the show as production manager on series 3. And I actually was in the pub with my dear friend, another Croft person, Robin Carr, and one evening, and we were chatting away, and I directed a couple of little scenes in series 2, literally the Lady Lavender and a parrot, with David said,
Voiced by Jeffrey Holland, I believe. Yes.
Voiced by Jeffrey Holland. Yes, and so he let me sort of, I mean, which were simple things. And I don't know what made me say it, probably too much alcohol. And I said, Robin, I said, how do I get David to let me direct one of the episodes this season? He said, asking for 2, because he'd been drinking as well, mad fool. And I said, I can't do that. He said, yeah, asking for 2. And funny enough, the next day, David came in, because he only used to come in once every 2 weeks to look through his post and see how's it going. Because as his production manager, you did everything for him. I mean, you set the whole thing up. It was down to you, because he trusted you to get it sorted out, as my predecessors, Susan Belbin and lovely Susie Belbin, and it was sitting there, and the rest of the team left the office to go to lunch, and it was just David and I thought, well, it's now or never, isn't it, really? So I said, David, you're not looking up from his desk. I said, is there any a possibility that I could direct 2 of the episodes this year? And he didn't look up from his desk. He just went, oh, didn't I tell you, love, you're doing them all? And he just turned, and I said, pardon? I said, what? Say that again, David. He said, what did you just say? He said, well, you're directing the whole series. Ah. And then he said, well, let's go to lunch now. I said, no, what else can I do first? He said, why is that? He said, I'm going to go find a production manager because I'm the director now. So moving on, a couple of weeks later, so I'm now with my director's hat on, and I'm an old-fashioned boy. These days, they do their schedules on these computer programs on screen. I can't do that. I mean, they didn't exist then anyway. It's index cards on the wall, and you put the scene number, what's happening. And I stood there one weekend when nobody else was in the office, working out my schedule, how I want to shoot it. And the first thing I put down was the picnic scene. And David came in a couple of days later, and he walked in the office door, and he turned, and he saw the cards were on the wall, and he looked at it, and I thought, oh, hello, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? And he stood back, and he said, so you're shooting the biggest, most complicated scene first on the picnic thing, are you, love? And I went, yes, David. He said, can I ask why? I said, because my thought is that if I could shoot that, I could shoot anything. He said, very good point. And that was it. Very good point. And that was my first day's filming was at, I can't remember the name of the house now, with the Charabang and all arriving at the picnic with lovely Hugh Lloyd and Johnny Horsley and Angela Schooler. It was such a difficult scene to shoot. I mean, it was all over the place. And a campfire in the evening, a night shoot with a campfire in the evening. But it was a baptism by fire, literally. But I got through it, and David just at the end of it, he just sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Well done, love, you're fine." And so, thank God.
That's sort of like getting a knighthood, isn't it, in terms of comedy?
Oh, I can't tell you. I cannot tell. I mean, I'm welling up a bit just telling the story because David was actually a very, very tears came very easily to him. He was quite emotional, and I know when we finished filming his last show that he ever did, but pilot of Here Comes the Queen with Wendy, Richard, and Les Dennis, and I called the last shot. and called it a rap. And he just came out to me and put his arms around me. He was sobbing his eyes out. He was a very emotional man, very emotional man. So that night after we did the campfire, he just put his hand on my shoulder and he just said, "Well done, love. Just well done."
Well, that heart comes through a lot of those episodes, and I'm moving on to now. So you got your favorite series, or so it could be a film series, radio series, situation comedy for television, whatever. Can I guess that it's going to be a David Croft and Jimmy Perry creation, or?
It's spooky, darling. It's very spooky. How did you know that, Robert?
Well, you know,
a comedy historian you are.
I'm a comedy fortune teller. No, anyway, clairvoyance.
You are, darling, you are. Although I have to say, it was nearly not a Croft and Perry or a Croft and Lloyd.
Okay.
Because it was nearly porridge.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit. Okay, I'll give you a couple because you're a mate. You know, you're allowed to bend the rules a bit here if you want. Because you worked with Dick and Ian quite a lot, didn't you?
No, actually, I didn't work with Dick and Ian. I mean, I knew them. I did the musical Billy at Drury Lane, which Dick and Ian wrote the book from the Waterhouse and Hall play. But I saw Dick and Ian around a lot because they were doing a few things around at the time. But also because Dick was a predecessor sitting in my chair in the Croft office. He was doing the director's training course when he was David's, what was then called a production assistant, which was the job I did as a production manager. And David said that Dick was the worst production assistant he'd ever had because he was never bloody there because he was too busy writing the Likely Lads pilot with Ian.
Yeah.
And he said, he never in the flipping office.
We should say Dick Clement and Ian Lefrenway we're talking about here, in case you're not a comedy aficionado and know who wrote the Likely Lads and porridge.
Yeah. So, and one of the reasons porridge I think is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think the writing is exquisite, and of course Ronnie B and also lovely Sam Kelly, my dear friend Sam Kelly. That was just a wonderful ensemble, and also it was one of David Croft's favorite shows. He said, well, if I'm being honest, it's probably my favorite sitcom, over and above himself.
Wow, yeah.
Which was saying something.
It's such a brilliant sit, isn't it? You know, the fact that you're literally trapped in four walls and you can go a little bit farther out of that cell, but not much further. You know,
no. I mean, I think A Night In is just a classic of comedy writing. Total, just well, I mean, I think Brian Wilde appeared or somebody appeared. Was it Paul Thingy from the Temperance Seven appeared to close them up or something? I can't remember which one
that's right. Yes.
But it was just Ronnie and Richard.
And Richard, yeah.
And it was absolutely exquisite how you maintain 30 minutes of comedy, just the two of them talking.
Yeah.
Well,
it's the classic old Galton and Simpson of just Hancock and Sid, isn't it? The two-handers. It's just that, and Steptoe and Son, just two people talking, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, absolutely. So where were we? What was I talking about? Who am I?
So I'm letting you have porridge as a sort of side order. You're allowed that as an extra bit on this comedy desert island. I'm throwing you away on
desert island.
Exactly. Yes. I pitched the format: lock, stock, and barrel from Roy Plumley.
No.
No.
But I'm going to go. Yes, I could go for Dad's Army, of course, which always a classic. But I'm going to go with Heidi High because it was just the biggest pile of fun to make, and I can't remember. I think I'm just looking at my notes now because I can't remember exactly how many episodes I did, but a lot of them. Heidi High. I made in one way or another 34 episodes of Heidi High.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a lot of episodes.
So you came after Simon Cadell left, is that right? So
I came beginning of series 4.
Oh yeah.
3 and 4 were done the same year because we used to shoot in the autumn, but I can't remember why. But they were shot in the spring as well. So series 3 was shot in the spring before I joined the show. Actually, I was doing Eurovision Song Contest in Harrogate at the time, and then I was dumped onto play school for my sins as a punishment for 4 months. And then I joined David's office.
Of course, I bet play school was fun as well, though. But anyway,
that's another. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
No, it wasn't. I hated Jemima.
You loved Hannibal though, didn't you? But anyway, go.
No, Big Ted. What's his name? Anyway. I mean,
Anyway. So Heidi High. Sorry, let's go.
4 months. You can edit this out for goodness sake. 4 months of hell. And then I started on David's. I joined David's office the day before his birthday, 60th birthday.
Right.
When he was rehearsing in Acton the pilot of Hello Hello.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I didn't meet him till the Tuesday, which is his birthday, because we had a surprise party, which I learned over the years is that any excuse for getting the champagne out having a party, David would have one. So if it was anybody's birthday, mine or the senior members of the cast or whatever, rehearsals would finish early, and we would have a party. And dare I say it, on the license payers' money.
Oh, money well spent, I should say as well.
Excuse me, I'm going to cough.
Excuse you. No, but absolutely. Listen, the license. I mean, that's where I want my license fee to go. Quite frankly, on your champagne.
Yeah. Oh, but funny enough, every time that David wrote champagne into a scene or an episode, he said, "Don't get that forced up. I want real champagne." And always order another half a dozen more, so we have some for the end of series party. So you said to the pot bar, you go, I want 12 bottles of real champagne, please. Oh, can't we get the stage champagne? No, I want 12 bottles. Oh, but you'd only need 6. I want 12 bottles. Thank you.
You see, it's all coming clear why you chose David Croft as your favourite comedy creative now.
Yes, it's true. This is true.
He juggled those budgets very beautifully.
Oh, yes. Yes, we never went over.
So why was it Heidi High out of all the many shows that David was involved with over the years? Why is Heidi High the one that stands out for you?
Just think it was a joy to make. It was such a joy to make. And it was a huge production. That camp and all those how many principals were in that? And we're all over the place, around the pool, in the ballroom, all around the chalet lines, whatever. It was like making a movie, but we all just had a ball. I mean, of course there were fallouts. There was fallouts and anything, but we all had a ball. Jeff, Sue, Paul, Barry Howard, or whatever. It was just great fun. It was just, you thought, I'm being paid for this. And they were wonderful scripts. They were so funny, and also, of course, so poignant. I mean, of course, Pollard's playing of Peggy was just a joy.
Yeah,
from start to finish.
Well, you see Sue's billing going up and up, don't you, over the first couple of series?
Well, listen, it was a character in the pilot was just there to introduce Geoffrey Fairbrother into his chalet because it couldn't be any of the entertainment stuff, and that's all that David and Jimmy wanted was this character, nameless at the time, as a chalet mate, so play a scene with Simon to say this is your chalet and there's you have soap once a week and whatever the soap is, and that was it. But of course she blew them away when she came in for the audition in Jimmy's flat. And David and Jimmy both told me and said, well, we have to write her in. And she wasn't meant to be in the filming at all. And they had nothing for her to do, which is why in the pilot, it's just lots of shots of her diving out from behind the big toys and whatever, just to give her something to do, because they just said she is comedy gold. We've got to start using it.
Yeah. And boy, did they use it.
Oh boy, yes. Oh yes.
I remember seeing an interview with David Croft, probably sort of maybe the late 90s, I think, that he said that Highly High was the first series, although Daz Army obviously and Off Hot Mum were massive successes. It took them an episode or a season even to bed in and get popular. Highly High was instantly, nationwide success, wasn't it?
I think it was. I mean, it was the rule of 3 with comedy. It's series 3. I mean, there's so many shows. I mean, this is where I think it falls down now with the commissioners, is they don't understand that is that the audience have got to get used to, and then it takes a couple of series for that to happen, and of course, and then series 3 you'll take off, and then you can go back to series 1 and 2, and they will enjoy them more. They need to get to know the characters. They need and David was absolutely, that's why he always made a pilot. He didn't have to ever make a pilot. I mean, his position was so strong at the BBC, and many head of comedy said, "Why are you making a pilot, David? He said, because I want to find out whether it works or not.
Mm.
Before I go into the whole series, I want to see what characters work. I mean, that's how, as I say, that's how Sue's character was developed. It was serious. It was an unnamed character, Shally made.
Mm.
That's all it was in the pilot
But
originally.
there's that sort of real lack of arrogance there about David Croft, isn't it? That he needs to prove to himself and Jimmy almost that what they think is going to work does work.
Well, yes, absolutely, and it was the same with John Inman in Are You Being Served? I
Sure.
mean, John was not the Are You Being Served was a vehicle for Molly and Trevor Bannister.
Mm.
It wasn't for John.
Mm.
I mean, he just knew that John was very good because John was, of course, John had a sort of double act with Barry Howard.
Mm.
But John wasn't a major character initially. Of course, he stole it. He absolutely just came in and half-inched it. And
Like robbery it was. Daylight robbery.
they like robbery.
But it's down to the audience, isn't it? They make the stars, don't they? They make the catchphrases. If a catchphrase doesn't fall, they don't do it again, do they?
No, and David always said that. And I remember asking him. I said, the catchphrase. He said, I never write catchphrases. They become catchphrases. But don't consciously think, oh, let's write a catchphrase. Oh dear, what a shame, never mind. He said that was just it came out on the page and I wrote it down, or Jimmy wrote it down, and the way that Windsor played the line on the night and the audience just laughed, they suddenly realized that they had something.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there going, oh, let's write a catchphrase.
Yeah. You sometimes no names, no patrons, but you watch certain shows and you think, oh, they're trying to get that to be a catchphrase because they use it a couple of times and then it just gets dropped, doesn't it?
Yes. You can't force an audience. You cannot force an audience. They have got to. I mean, it's like water. They have to find their own level. Seriously, have to find their own level.
Very deep.
It's deep, isn't it? It's deep. I'm actually sounding as if I know what the hell I'm talking about.
I was going to say this way you put the big bucks here, but anyway. So I'm going to wrap up on Heidi High. I just want to say, talking about David getting very emotional with that last pilot show you made with him. The ending of Heidi High was a pretty tear-jerking as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, on all levels, of course, because we had the great storm. Because the last day of filming was meant to be the Friday. And I was in my room at the hotel, the Cliff Hotel, and my wife was with me, and she said that she woke me up and said, "You hear that noise?" I said, "No, I was asleep." What? And then I suddenly heard this noise, this wind blowing, and this horrible sharp sounds of tiles being flung off the roof by a giant towards my car, and my wife saying, "Go out and move the car." I said, "I'm not bloody well going out there. It's dangerous." And then the phone rang, and it was one of the extras. Lovely, actually, lovely Yvonne Marsh, who was Eileen, Jean Marsh's sister, who was a wonderful, well, probably one of the best principal boys in the country when she was at Norwich Theatre Royal. It was Yvonne phoning up and saying, "I don't know if you know, but the trees are down all over the place. We can't get through." Blah 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 blah. And so I ran down to the camp and was getting people out before the trees were falling on top of the chalet lines, which was a horrendous experience. But it was meant to be the last day of filming, and unfortunately, 2 trees fell across the electric generator, and we couldn't. I mean, we had nothing, and we couldn't shoot. So the director at the time was Mike Stevens, and I was the production manager. So Mike and I were rallying the troops to literally physically lift trees off of generators or whatever. And we didn't know it was going to work. And after about, I think,
this is above and beyond your pay scale, surely, isn't
it? I mean, we wouldn't be able to do it now because it's the health and safety. The area would be cleared, and all the yellow high vis jackets would be coming in, and they'd be scratching their heads and not knowing what they're doing. We didn't have a high vis jacket to save our lives. We just went, "I'll scramble up this tree trunk, which is leaning at a very strange angle, and I'll try and cut off some branches." Anyway, so we moved it. And then we just, I mean, again, another thing you wouldn't be able to do is this. We said to the Jenny driver, "See if you can start the Jenny." I mean, these days they go, "Oh, you can't do that." So we started the engine and turned it over, and the Jenny worked. So we said, "Okay, we can film tomorrow." And so we filmed in the ballroom for Goodnight Campus the next day on Saturday.
Yeah,
which was we were meant to be going home on Saturday. That's the only time we ever overran.
Wow, yeah.
Try to say that again. The only
Yeah,
time we
it was badly said.
ever ran. Yes, so we did that on Saturday, and but it was incredibly moving. I mean, if the listeners watch Paul Shane in singing "Goodnight Campbell," they are not phony tears.
Hmm.
He could not hold it back. Pollard was squeezing his arm to try and keep him together. We
Because
were all there.
the audience had grown to love those characters, and the actors had grown to love each other, I suppose, hadn't they? You know.
It had. I mean,
Hmm.
it was. I mean, I know it's a cliche and it's well overused, but it was a family. And again, this is where David Croft was so clever. He cast his crew as much as he cast his actors, and so we were all a family. We were all mates. There was no hierarchy, as such. It wasn't a case of Paul Shane and Jeffrey Holland and Ruth Maddock are the stars and they must not be approached, whatever. None of that nonsense. Is that we were all in it together. We all mucked in. And I think that came across.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, that episode, aptly enough, is called "The Wind of Change."
It certainly was.
I urge everybody to rewatch again Heidi High, and let's face it, all the David Croft comedies, because they're all
Yeah,
brilliant, and they're all
yeah,
timelessly funny because they're all set
yeah.
in the past. So it doesn't matter. All right, so moving on now. So we're coming to the end of this chat now, Roy, and I'm going to miss it. We'll have to do it again tomorrow. Um,
Yes.
so the final category is your, now this is also an impossible choice. Your
Yeah.
favorite funny film, if you can narrow it
Okay.
to one.
Okay. Now I teased you earlier with Kenny Connor would appear in this last bit. And in
Yes.
fact, I believe it was his first time on film. And it was in The Lady Killers.
What I was going to say was, it's Carry On Emmanuel, isn't it? No, it's not.
No, no, it was The Lady Killers, and it was
He
actually
was
the
he
first
was in
time.
he was in a film called Poison Pen in 1939 before he went into the
All right.
National Service, but he came
It's
back.
ruining my story now,
Yes, I'm
Ross.
sorry.
No,
Sorry,
seriously.
this is when facts fuck up a story. Anyway, carry
Yes,
on.
because that was also with Frankie Howard playing the. No, was Kenny the taxi driver and
Kenny's the
Frankie Howard
taxi
was the
driver,
was the
yeah,
greengrocer's store?
Frankie's the
What
barrel boy, exactly. Yes,
terrible.
and
Anyway,
Jack
so
Warner's the copper.
that was the copper.
Yeah.
So my favorite, because again, I love dark humor, which is the Lady Killers. I just think it is the funniest, darkest. I mean, who can imagine that you finish a film killing off all your characters? Being run over by trains and knocked off by signaling and whatever. I mean, and off railway bridges. I mean, it's just so wonderfully dark.
Yeah, yeah.
And the characters, I mean, every single one, Guinness was brilliant, Herbert Lom, Danny Green. I mean, and of course, Sellers, and it's just, a joy, absolute joy. I love that
And
film.
Cecil Parker, and I mean, Cecil Parker had been
Oh,
in The
yes.
Man in the White Suit prior to that, and he was a sort of
Yeah,
an avuncular character in all his films and stage roles. But to play
yeah,
a similar sort of role, a sort of that bumbling faux major, but he's a bad one, isn't he? It's
yeah, absolutely. And it's just beautiful writing. It's
yeah,
beautiful writing, and it's so funny, but it's dark, and I love that black humor. And of course, and they were playing it straight, absolutely straight,
yeah, yeah,
and which made it even funnier.
yeah.
The premise is outrageous. If you break it down, the premise is outrageous. But if you do it with enough chutzpah, you do it with enough, it works.
There's
And
that
I
wonderful moment where Danny Green has won round the wonderful sort of ex-wrestler sort of turn crook, and they
yeah,
all think he's stupid, but he's actually quite wise, really. And he takes care of Mard and Katie Johnson, the old lady they're trying to bump
Mrs.
off.
Lopsided, Mrs.
Mrs.
Lopsided.
Lopsided.
Yes,
There's something quite touching about that, actually, isn't there?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I mean that wonderful scene where I can't remember the name of Katie, what her name was.
Katie Johnson.
Katie Johnson. When she discovers her disappointment when she ticks them all off.
Yeah.
And they're all standing there, Danny Green, I mean, as if a naughty school child. And it's just again, because it's done completely straight, it's bloody funny.
Mm.
If you played that for comedy, it wouldn't work.
Mm.
But they don't. They play it absolutely straight down the middle.
And even Sellers,
Well,
obviously, very early doors for him in terms of film acting, and for me,
yes.
he would become our greatest comedy film actor. Sellers, but I mean, he sort of he mugs it a little bit. He's quite blue bottle, isn't he, from the Goon Show? There's a sort of
Yes, yes,
bit of that to it.
yeah.
There's that scene where they're drawing the straws, who's going to try and kill Mrs. Lopsided next,
Yes,
and he does
exactly.
this real sort of like cartoon gulp when it's Sellers. Look,
You're absolutely right. Absolutely. I mean, Herbert Lom was so sinister in that movie. I
absolutely,
mean,
yeah.
absolutely psychopath. The man was a total psychopath. I say, but that ending where you know signals are chopping their heads off and they were falling out. I mean, just genius.
And the
That you
way it's
think,
shot, Alexander McKendrick, it's shot.
yeah,
It looks quite dark. It's almost shot like a film noir, isn't it? Really.
yes, absolutely right, absolutely right. And it's just, and of course, the other clever thing is you never see the dead body. It's always the moment, cut away.
Mm.
Again, you know, less is more. Very, you know, leave more to the imagination. And I think it's brilliant. I love that film so much.
Oh, I love it too. I know I've read oceans of words of sort of very academic film critics, and they're probably right, sort of, you know, trying to look at it like it's the Labour government, and it's obviously, you know, 10 years after the war ended and all that, and it's the hardship of living in Britain. But as you say, it's just a very funny black comedy played to perfection by a great cast of actors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Have you got any more? Can we keep going forever?
Yes. Well, okay, Roy, your second fate. No, no, no. But no, well, I tell you what, I think you're the sort of person that I've known not that long, but I know you well enough, and I love you being a mate because we talk about comedy all the time. I think we could do it again and just have another set of choices, couldn't we? And it doesn't
Oh,
make
I
it
think so.
any less valid if it's another choice because
No, no, no,
you're
no.
like me. My favorite comedy film changes on almost on a daily basis.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And also, I say the different comedy performers. I mean, I could have gone for stand-ups. You know, you could have gone for your Bob Monkhouses or your Doddies and whatever.
Yeah.
But where do you stop?
Roy, save it, save it.
I'm gesticulating, and you can't. Nobody can see me gesticulating. I'm gesticulating away madly here.
Shall I say dot 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 to be continued?
To
And,
be continued.
we'll do it again. Well, look, Roy, it's been an absolute joy. And I don't mean to be a poet, and I know it, but anyway, thank you so much for your time and for your brilliant comedy memories. And can I say thank you from a grateful nation for your brilliant comedy work. Thank you,
Well,
sir.
that's very, very kind of you to say so. I shall now go away and have a cup of tea. Thank you.
Enjoy.
Enjoy, enjoy.
If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, please subscribe for more upcoming episodes and do tell your chums. You can find out where Robert will be appearing next or what books he has coming out by visiting his website www.robertross.co.uk. You can also follow Robert on Facebook if you search Robert Ross Comedy Historian, and he's also on Instagram at Robert W. Ross ESQ, that's Esquire, for more fun over there. This podcast was hosted by Robert Ross and produced by Gemma Ross.